where you want to be.
Well, that's what I learned. I mean, I went to enough museums and enough galleries in New York to realize that the guy from Ghana was never fucking moving to New York, and he's here. And he's talking about where he's from. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. See, I didn't move to New York to become a famous artist. I moved to New York. My mom had lost our house in Cleveland. She moved to Columbus. Came out of OU, and I didn't want to go to Columbus. And one of my roommates had been living in New York for 2 years. I interned in freaking El Paso, Texas, with a hell of a photographer who said, where are you going when you're finished? Pick a place, go, you like it, stay, you don't leave. So that was our conversation. I moved to New York because it wasn't time for me to move back to Cleveland yet, because I didn't understand what I was supposed to do in Cleveland. So it was it's weird. I didn't completely process that all of the artists were moving to New York when I'm looking through the books. Because when I'm looking through the books, when I'm learning art history, when I'm learning photo history, I'm not really absorbing any of the content conceptually at all. I only have a technical attraction to any of it. All of it was white, even when it was a person of color, and I recognized the difference in the perspectives when I was.
What do you mean by that? So you mean like
the image of the black person on a worldwide scale when it comes to photography and a lot of the other arts are from the perspective of a white person.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's like the white photographer goes and tells us that all these kids are poor in Africa. The kid is sitting on the ground. They look down on them. The child looks up. Their eyes are big. The eyes are beautiful. The skin is black. And then these are the pictures that plague everybody's perception about who these people are.
Yeah.
I recognize that the pictures when I was taking them looked different. I didn't recognize that I was taking pictures of black people. A white person who told me to photograph more white people taught me that I was photographing black people. So my experience has been very, very, very interesting because I am one of the black people who has no desire to appropriate and to assimilate just in order to make money or create an opportunity for myself. Yeah. I didn't know that then. I do understand that now. In me moving back to Cleveland, aggression, anger, violence, rage, all that stuff was something I mastered suppressing. I ultimately realized that that's what I was good at. When people are calling me the good kid or a good person and all that kind of stuff. So that allowed me to be in very, very close proximity to white people, especially the white people around Cleveland School of the Arts and the art world and that sort of thing, which started to reveal to me a whole nother level of the experience of race and racism. Simultaneously with me creating a relationship with my father for the first time. So it was saying, I don't know what's missing from my work. I would only assume that it has something to do with what's missing from me not growing up with my dad and whatever it is I don't understand about myself. I was just assuming that it was somewhere in that relationship. So I moved back to Cleveland because I didn't want to, like I said, if you listen to the eulogy, I didn't want to fly in town for my father being dead and I don't know who he is. And I was no longer a child, which means I could have took any level of responsibility to create the relationship. So what I did is I came to Cleveland to create the relationship. Literally.
Yeah.
To learn who he is, ultimately to help me understand who I am. So I have, 500 hours of audio of me and my dad talking.
Wow.
I have video of our conversations. He didn't like having this photograph taken. I have some beautiful photographs of him. I have some.
I've seen a couple, I think.
You might. Yeah, if you on Instagram, there's a couple maybe portraits or pictures of him kind of. Yeah, you might have seen a couple pictures of him popping up. So between, like a Charles Pinckney type of a figure, this older, like when I hear father, I don't necessarily hear dad, if I'm using the two terms correctly. And it might be vice versa. I hear black men and I hear older black men and I hear a level of wisdom when I'm hearing father. So I don't know that what I was envisioning, kind of putting forth in terms of the images or the conversation that supports the images, they weren't isolated to my father. But I think maybe Ali said, or maybe a message or email said, is it only, does he have more than pictures of just his dad? So that made me feel like I wanted to talk because, my dad passed away. So when I heard just my dad, it kind of made me cringe a couple different ways. So it was kind of like, well, maybe we should just talk.
No. Not just. I don't mean it like just. I mean, I understand. No, it's more like, I said that as in reaction to thinking, well, yeah, no, if there's more than your father, than images of your father, that I'd be open to, this is really about the work you're making. So it's not. I didn't want to be limiting in terms of, maybe you didn't want to show pictures of your dad. Maybe that was. I got you. So that's what I meant by that. Like,
I got you.
Maybe because like what's the mural you just did? I think the dad it looks like a father and son playing chess.
So
images like that. I mean, so I don't know if that's a father and son, but like that type of image.
Right. Well, ultimately, that image. Well, two things I was gonna say. That image is an image that I created when I was trying to figure out how to like talk through the work. It was like, at some point in moving back to Cleveland, or before moving back to Cleveland, I realized I wasn't saying shit. Like, not consciously, not intentionally. It was like I was on a technical exercise, journey as an artist, and have been, with conceptual things kind of coming out of my subconscious here and there. But I realized that I was just trying to still get an A on the assignments, because the assignment was lighting. The assignment was technical based. When I got to college, I started getting low grades on conceptual. So when I was in Cleveland, knowing that I'm building the relationship with my dad, now for the first time, creatively, I'm even thinking of creating father-son stuff. Like that hadn't happened prior. I wasn't the kid drawing the father that I wish was there. Father never came up in the work. So ultimately it was me illustrating, my dad would come and play me in chess in the middle of the night. And this is when I was just kind of growing up. And just randomly, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, he'd knock on the door and would sit me on the floor and play me in a game of chess. So that image of that mural that went up is a father and son. And I'll talk about that as the other component to what I'm thinking of in terms of the work. It's me trying to communicate, these ideas, these images in my mind of my dad coming in the middle of the night and playing me in chess. Or me waking up and me asking my mom and she say, no, he didn't come. You must have been dreaming. So it was kind of like, at 40, I couldn't tell you how many times he came and how many times it was a dream but the only thing I do know is that he would come from Lakeshore to Kinsman on the bus to ride down Kinsman to see the mural. And he would call me and he'd say, I just rode by us on the wall. And I didn't tell him that was us. I didn't tell him what I tell people when I'm talking about the work. It was kind of like he already fucking knew, which was just another thing in terms of our relationship we created that was just blowing my mind. Because my perception up until 29, 28 was that he's not thinking about me, ultimately. That's what I'm assuming. So that was just a mind-blowing thing. But another thing I realized when I moved back to Cleveland in relationship to the father and son is that when I left Cleveland, which I technically say I left Cleveland when I went to OU. I mean, that was really when I left the city. And then my mom moved to Columbus before I graduated from OU. So what happened is that instantly turned into my journey to New York before I got back to Cleveland, which is literally about a 10-year period of time. When I got back, what I realized is when I left this group of boys and young men, when I came back, I was in a world of fathers. Versus when I left, I could count whose father was around. It was like 2 of us whose dad was around.
Right.
Well, I come back to Cleveland in my family, which is, a lot of boy cousins, a lot of us all about the same age, everybody's dad had passed away already. So at 27, I'm like one of the only people whose father is alive, which also made me feel like, oh, okay, I really need to, really, really, really cultivate this relationship, because I don't want to be the person who's I wish I woulda, coulda, shoulda type of a thing. So in that photograph is one of my younger cousins. One of my younger cousins who I really, really felt like I left him when I went to college. I watched what his life became without me around. So this is me kind of saying, this is kind of me kind of paying homage or making up for lost or missed time. So there's a huge engagement with his son, because his son is in multiple murals. So the little boy in the father-son picture pops up continuously on the walls, because, I've been studying photography. So I studied photography, and I pulled all the little small pieces and elements that I wanted to turn myself into ultimately, So Gordon Parks visits a kid wherever he was visiting that kid, and built a relationship with that child. And that child turned up to be a 40-year-old man talking about the experience he had with Gordon Parks and what that experience did for his life, which made me say, okay, so who's my kid that I'm around that I care to engage with on whatever level? So that kind of turned into my cousin's son. And then my cousin and his son being representation of father and son. So when I'm even creating the images, there's a real father-son connection that's being communicated in the image. Most people assume that it's in father and son, but I would imagine that that's because it actually, because it is, and it's like, I'm looking at it like a new father versus, my dad being like an old father,
Yeah.
So it's on a couple different levels. So I got images of father and son with my contemporaries, my peer level. I have a few very, very, very strong father images that are my dad, but then I have a couple very, very strong images of fathers that is somebody else's dad that's around me. Just so the conversation of father and son, that's probably the range of it. I mean, like, that's the whole conversation.
This show, really, this is about, where you're at creatively. So, as, from a curator, I guess this is curatorial light. I'm really interested in what you're doing now, what you're working on now, what's most important to you now, what tells your story. I don't want to tell the story for you.
I got you.
Yeah. So, so that all sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, because that's literally what I'm working on now. I mean, I literally was in a conversation, and I'm also seeing this as I'm putting together last 12 years memoir of photographs that'll have text and essays and artist statements and all this other stuff combined with about 35 images.
Wow.
Well, I had a conversation with the guy Charles Pinckney like a couple days ago.
Okay.
And I'm talking to him and sharing with him what I'm sharing with you, just in relationship to him being a key element into my move back, knowing that my move back was inspired by the lack of understanding of self that was in direct proximity of the lack of understanding of my dad. And he said, Donald, that's amazing. He said, that just really is like lighting my life up right now. This guy's like 80, he's probably about 89 or so.
Yeah.
And he says, because I think one of the key things, Charles Pinckney?
I don't know that, but I think I've met him once. So.
Gotcha.
He knows work.
Right.
So by that,
Right. Well, what he said is, he said one of the key things that if he could tell the black community to do one thing that would change the direction and trajectory of where the community is and where it can go, is somehow figuring out a way to repair the relationship with the father and son, is what he said. And yeah, so he said that, and then I told him, I said, people who came to my dad's funeral are still talking about what they heard me say. And what they were hearing me say is, I went and created the relationship that I needed and I realized that we both needed it.
Yeah.
But the way it was set up was it kind of had me in control of whether it happens or not. Because it was like I had to kind of step out of the way and say, I'm no longer a 16-year-old frustrated or upset like, dude, where are you at? It's more like I'm like a 30-year-old saying, what the hell is some of this stuff that's going on with me that I don't understand and don't have anybody to talk to about it. So it was that. And then I got a lot of people around me, a lot of friends are out of town. So that out of town element, me not flying back into a funeral for somebody I didn't know, is triggering a lot of people around me because, like I said, I grew up in a huge population of people who weren't around their dad, male and female. And when I say huge, I mean fucking almost everybody. I mean, it's mind blowing that if I can sit and name 50 people, then I can sit and on one or two hands maybe say who had a relationship with their father, let alone lived with their father. So it just
that's interesting. So
yeah.
My oldest is at Smith, and it's obviously an all women's school, but I was of her freshman class. I was the only father that visited. And I found that, it's not a very big school, but,
But only is a lot, Only is like, only?
That's what I said.
Yeah.
It's just like, sorry, my dog's freaking out. No, I'll let her out. Max. It's my giant German Shepherd, Maggie.
Oh, okay, got you.
Hey, baby. No, I think, that was the, I don't know what it is, what that says, but, it's interesting to hear you talk about that because, I don't know, a lot has been put on Black America about that type of stuff, and I've heard that. You've probably, I can't, in terms of dad, really, parent, it's utterly probably false, and, as a dad,